The rock was supposed to be innocent. A miner tears it out of the ground in Gabon, tosses it into a truck, and it heads for a refinery like it has 1,000 times before. No alarms, no soldiers, no secrecy. But one batch shows up, already used. Here's the promise. By the time this ends, you'll know how the Earth ran a nuclear reactor with no engineers, and why the leftovers stayed put long enough to embarrass every argument we've ever had about safe nuclear waste. Stay until the end, because the last detail isn't about power. It's about containment, and it's brutal. I used to roll my eyes at stories like this, the kind of trivia someone drops at a party like a coin trick. Then I tried to argue with the measurements, and the measurements didn't argue back. Southern Gabon feels heavy even before you touch the ore. The air carries wet soil and old vegetation. The roads are reddish. Everything you set down gets dusted. Boots crack, shirts stick. Near a town called Franceville, the mine pulls up uranium ore so dark it looks damp. Dry rock that pretends it's wet. It smears your gloves like charcoal.
At the processing plant, the smell is a mix of diesel, hot metal, and that sharp, chalky bite you get when stone is being ground down all day. Men shout over machinery, conveyors rattle, forklifts beep and disappear into steam. This is not where you expect a mystery. A technician checks the incoming material, not a detective. A tired person with a clipboard, a routine, and a chain of numbers that has to close. One line doesn't close, not by a rounding error, by a missing fingerprint. Natural uranium has a ratio that's supposed to be boring. Almost all of it is uranium-238. A thin slice, less than 1%, is uranium-235. That thin slice matters. U-235 is the one that splits easily, the one reactors eat, the one that turns into heat and neutrons and arguments. This shipment from Oklo, this ordinary mud-stained ore, has less U-235 than it should. The first reaction is ugly because it's human. Somebody siphoned it. Somebody got paid. Somebody figured out how to steal a fuel isotope out of raw ore and leave the rest behind. So they do what you do when you don't want to accuse the wrong person. They test again.
New samples, new instruments, tighter controls. The kind of lab procedure that makes everyone slower and angrier. Same result. The uranium didn't get robbed at the plant. It didn't vanish on the road. It came out of the ground already depleted, already burned, like it had sat inside a reactor and done its job. That's the first punch. This wasn't just a deposit. It was spent fuel. So now the question gets simple and it gets horrifying. If no one built a reactor, what did? A reactor isn't a building, it's a situation. You need fuel that can fission. You need neutrons. You need the neutrons to keep hitting more fuel instead of getting swallowed by the wrong atoms or racing out of the system too fast. When a U-235 nucleus splits, it tosses out heat and extra neutrons like sparks. Catch enough of those sparks and you get a chain reaction. Catch too few, nothing happens. Catch them too fast and uncontrolled, you don't get a steady hum. You get a spike, a mess. The trick humans use is moderation, not moral moderation, physics. Fast neutrons are hard to catch. Slow them down, and they're more likely to trigger another fission. In many of our reactors, the moderator is water.
And at Oklo, 2 billion years ago, the moderator was also water. Groundwater, seeping through rock, filling cracks, dripping into pockets. That line still feels illegal to say out loud. Water and fission sounds like a headline where you already know the ending. Except here, water didn't make it worse. It made it possible. There's a catch though, and this is where the story stops being a cute oddity. If you took natural uranium today and soaked it with water, it still wouldn't run like a reactor. It's too lean. There isn't enough U-235 in modern natural uranium to keep the chain reaction going in a water-moderated setup. So why did Gabon's ore act like it had been inside a reactor? Because natural uranium used to be different. U-235 decays faster than U-238. Over long time, it disappears quicker. That means if you rewind Earth, if you go back far enough, the same natural uranium has a higher share of U-235. Not enriched by machines, enriched by age. 2 billion years ago, that share was high enough to resemble the fuel we deliberately load into many power reactors today. No centrifuges, just deep time. Now give it the right geology. Oklo wasn't one tidy chamber.
It was multiple zones, pockets where uranium concentrated inside layers of sandstone and clay. Think of it like a ruined wall with hollow spots. Some areas dense with fuel, others basically dead. Groundwater threaded through the whole thing. And when water filled a uranium-rich pocket, it slowed neutrons. The reaction started. Heat rose. And then something happened that sounds like a safety system, except nobody designed it. The water boiled. Once it turned to steam, it stopped moderating neutrons well. The chain reaction starved. The reactor shut down. Rock cooled. Water seeped back in. The reactor woke up again. On, off, on, off. Not every second, not like a light switch, more like a pulse, a slow machine made of stone and chemistry. If you could stand there, you wouldn't see stainless steel. You'd see a world with no birds, no trees, no mammals, just microbial life smeared along water lines, iron-stained sediment, and a stretch of ground that warmed, steamed, fell quiet, and warmed again. A reactor, hiding in daylight. And if that was the whole story, we'd file it away as a freak accident. But reactors don't just make heat. They make leftovers. Fission breaks uranium into other elements: xenon, krypton, cesium, strontium, neodymium, a whole junkyard of atoms that didn't exist in that rock before. And neutron exposure can turn uranium-238 into heavier stuff, like plutonium. That word changes a room, because it isn't just chemistry, it's the shadow behind weapon designs. It's the substance people imagine when they imagine the worst. So when investigators realized Oklo had been a working reactor, the next question wasn't academic. It was a fear question. Where did the waste go? Because if this thing really ran, if it really consumed U-235 and produced fission products, then over 2 billion years, those byproducts should have wandered. Groundwater moves, rocks crack, heat cycles stress minerals. You'd expect a radioactive smear spreading outward over time, turning the area into a slow poison. That's the argument people still have about our own waste. Bury it deep. It'll leak. Not if the geology is right. Nothing stays sealed forever. Oklo is the nightmare test case because it wasn't sealed by humans. No engineered canisters, no glass logs, no warnings in stone. Just nature.
So scientists went hunting, not for blackened walls, but for isotopic fingerprints. They crushed samples, dissolved them, put them through instruments that don't care what you want the answer to be. And the results came back sharp. The missing U-235 was real. It wasn't an accounting error. It was consumed. The byproducts were there in the exact patterns you see when a chain reaction has been running for a long time. Xenon, which is a gas and loves to escape, was trapped inside mineral crystals, locked like tiny bubbles in glass. Neodymium isotopes lined up like a confession, not random, not what you'd see from ordinary decay. This ore had a burn history, a reactor history. Now here's where the mood flips, because the easy headline is, "Nature did it safely." And it feels good to say that. It's clean, it's comforting, it lets everyone take their favorite side without paying the full price. Pro-nuclear people point and say, see, the Earth can hold waste. Anti-nuclear people point and say, see, the Earth can make reactors by accident. Both grab the story like it's a weapon, but Oklo doesn't belong to either side. Oklo is weirder than that. The reactor didn't run forever.
It ran intermittently over a long span, and it did something that should keep you awake if you've ever said the phrase geologic time like it's a comfort blanket. Because those fission products didn't just sit in a nice dry vault. They sat in rock that had water moving through it for ages, and still, a lot of them didn't go far, not because they were harmless, because chemistry is a cage. Some elements bind into minerals and become stubborn. Some get trapped in crystal lattices. Some precipitate out when conditions change. Some get locked in clays. The Earth didn't wrap the waste in engineered copper. It used pressure, minerals, and time. 2 billion years of time. And that sounds like a victory until you picture what 2 billion years really means. Continents drift, oceans open and close, mountain ranges rise and get ground down into sand. Species bloom and vanish like sparks. And through all of that, the evidence of a reactor stayed readable. That's the contradiction. Oklo is proof of stability and proof of vulnerability. Stable enough that the signature survived, vulnerable enough that you can't pretend nothing moved. Some products did migrate, some were retained.
The story is complicated, and the complexity is the point. Because our argument about nuclear waste usually hides inside neat words: permanent, secure, forever. Oklo laughs at those words. It shows you what actually happens when physics and water negotiate over unimaginable time. And then it adds one more quiet threat: plutonium. If the reactor zones had neutrons, uranium-238 would have captured some of them. That breeds plutonium. It doesn't stick around forever. Its isotopes decay on their own schedules. But for a time, nature manufactured the same family of elements we treat like the darkest human invention. Not in a lab, in a rock. Here's the part that landed hardest for me. We like to think of technology as the sharp line between natural and unnatural. Oklo erases that line. It tells you that the planet already knows the rules. It can assemble the conditions. It can run the reaction. It can trap the waste. And it can do all of it without meaning to. So when people say, just put it in the ground, I don't hear comfort anymore. I hear a dare. Because the Earth can be a vault.
But the Earth is also alive with movement, slow, patient movement that doesn't care about our deadlines or our confidence. Oklo isn't a bedtime story about safety. It's a crime scene with no criminal, a reactor with no builder, spent fuel that arrived at the refinery
already spent, and a question hanging over every modern storage plan. If nature can hold a reactor's ashes for 2 billion years, what exactly are we promising when we say forever? Time is the real containment test.